This is my friend Matt, also known as Crop Body. And this is my friend DeMonte, also known as Full Frame. Today, we answer the age-old photography question. APS-C or crop body or full frame? And which one is right for you? Let's get into it. There seems to be this idea floating around that full frame cameras are always a better choice than APS-C or crop sensor cameras. It's gotten so bad that some people say you can't be a professional photographer unless you shoot with a full frame camera. Well, today, we're putting that thought process to the test and putting these two through a set of challenges, tallying up the points, and proving once and for all which is the best choice for you. Before we get into the challenges, we have to clarify a few things. First, what is a full frame camera and what is an APS-C or crop sensor camera? The term full frame comes from the film photography days and refers to the sensor taking up the full frame of what was the standard 35mm film. On standard full frame cameras, the sensor size is 36mm by 24mm. Crop sensors are just what they sound like, a crop of that full frame. They typically come in at 24mm by 16mm. And much like my friend Crop Body here, they are traditionally 1.5 times smaller than their full frame brothers. We'll talk about why that's important later on, but for now, let's get into the first challenge. Portability. Nope. Okay, clearly my man Crop Body wins this one. I can take him with me just about anywhere. He and his accessories can fit in my back seat, trunk, small bag, even coat pocket, and travel with me virtually unnoticed. Full frame, on the other hand, is a little bit more difficult to travel with. Because full frame cameras are physically bigger and heavier and have larger lenses and accessories, they're just not as portable as crop bodies. Score one for the tiny boys. Features. Okay, now we have to talk about practically using each of these types of cameras and the features that typically come with them. So we'll do a walk around to see who has the best extra features when it comes to actual use. Number of card slots, faster processor, larger battery, faster burst shooting, stronger build quality, and weather sealing. For this one, unsurprisingly, the point goes to full frame. The reason many professional photographers shoot full frame isn't necessarily because of the sensor itself, but because of the premium features that brands build into their full frame cameras. Things like dual card slots, faster processors, weather sealing, and better focus modes make the process of shooting easier, and a lot of times they're only available on their full frame bodies. Luckily, more and more brands are finally putting these premium features into their crop sensor bodies. Fujifilm, for example, doesn't even make full frame cameras, so they have all of these features available as options on their APS-C camera lineup. But most brands still use crop bodies and full frame bodies as a way to differentiate their camera lineup and reserve features for their flagship cameras that also happen to be full frame. Low light performance. We'll put them both in a dark room to see who does better in low light. Whoever produces the least amount of noise wins.
This is fine. I'm okay. This is fine.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Wait, no I'm not, no I'm not. Get me out of here.
It was pretty close, but there was a little bit more noise coming from Crop Body. Okay, now, all things being equal, same generation, manufacturer, megapixel count, a full frame sensor will have better low light performance than an APS-C or crop sensor, just due to the way they're made. To have the same megapixel count on both a full frame and APS-C sensor, the physical pixels on the crop sensor have to be smaller. That means that the pixels on the full frame are larger and will capture more light each, and the sensor will capture more light in total. Larger pixels tend to have less noise than smaller pixels because they get more light. Also, they tend to have more dynamic range, or the ability to show the difference in tones from light to dark, and colors can be captured with more fidelity. In good light, and most of the time, it's really hard to tell them apart. It only becomes apparent when we're pushing them to the extremes. So for this one, while it's close, the point goes to full frame.
Point of view.
As you can see from Matt's glasses, the point of view on crop body is a little bit more magnified than full frame. So we're gonna show a point of view shot of what each of these guys see. We'll put the same 35mm lens on each, and as you can see, full frames is a little bit wider. That's because even though the lens is projecting the same scene onto both sensors, the crop sensor is only able to capture a smaller crop of the image, 1.5 times smaller. And it's not taking full advantage of the scene that the lens is projecting. So even though we're using the same 35mm lens, on the crop sensor, it looks like we're using a 52.5mm lens, or 35 times 1.5. Also, you can only use a lens on both a full frame and crop sensor if it was designed to cover a full frame sensor. If you try to use a lens designed for a crop sensor on a full frame, you'll get vignetting because it won't cover the whole sensor. When people talk about a 50mm being a good all-arounder or an 85mm being great for portraits, they're often talking about the field of view that those lenses give on a full frame camera. So in order to find the lens that would give you the same field of view on a crop or APS-C sensor, all you have to do is divide by the crop factor. In our case, 1.5. This means that the field of view that a 50mm gives on a full frame is the equivalent of 50 divided by 1.5, or 33mm on a crop sensor. Because of this, crop body has an advantage if you want longer reach or magnification out of the lenses you already own. This is great for types of photography where you are shooting subjects at a distance and don't have the ability to physically move closer. Things like nature or sports. If you want a wider field of view, then full frame sensors will give you a wider image with the same lens. This is great for types of photography like architectural or landscapes where you want a really wide field of view. Now, you can always buy wider lenses for your crop body and more telephoto lenses for your full frame camera, but at the same focal length, the full frame will be wider and the crop body will be tighter. Let's look back at the point of view shots though and try to match them as best as we can. We'll move full frame closer to match the field of view and size of the subject in frame, and now the photos look similar, but the shot from the full frame has more background blur. Now, this isn't because full frame cameras inherently capture a shallower depth of field, but because in order to match a shot between the two, the full frame has to be closer to the subject, resulting in more bokeh or background blur. How close you are to your subject, what aperture you're shooting at, and how long of a lens you're on all play into your depth of field. Now, in use, because of lens choice, again, how close we are to our subjects, how we actually use our cameras, you can get blurrier backgrounds from a full frame camera. But again, it's not just because of this sensor. This is often why portrait photographers prefer full frame and can take advantage of that little extra bokeh. Landscape or macro photographers might like crop sensors better because it's a little bit easier to get everything in focus. So this mainly comes down to what type of shooting you're doing and what tool best suits your style. Because this depends on what is most important to you, this challenge is a tie, so you both get a point.
Affordability.
Lastly, and most importantly for most people, the affordability test. We are gonna have these two eat until they're full and see which one is gonna cost me the least. All right, in 3, 2, 1, go! Well, that was pretty obvious. Crop body won this one. Because of the smaller sensor, smaller lenses, and often lack of high-end features, crop sensors or APS-C cameras are overall more affordable. For the price of one full-frame body, you might be able to get a full APS-C camera kit with body, lenses, and a few extra accessories. Now, let's look at the final board and see who won. Final tally says it's a tie. Of course it is. Now, I know that this all looks convincing, but the truth is, Matt is not actually a crop sensor camera, and DeMonte is not actually a full frame camera. So the real winners are all of us and the friends we made along the way. There are so many great crop sensor and full frame cameras available, and we get to pick and choose between so many great features to select what's best for our needs as photographers and video creators. Typically, the types of photographers that will benefit most from crop sensor cameras are landscape, wildlife, and sports because of the portability and extra reach of the lenses. And typically, the types of photographers that will benefit most from full frame sensors are portrait and event photographers because of the extra background blur and, all things equal, slightly better low light performance. Now, I know landscape photographers that prefer full frame for the dynamic range, and event photographers that prefer crop sensor for the portability and weight savings. It all comes down to what's most important to you and the compromises that you can live with. My best advice is to find a few camera models, APS-C or full frame, that will suit 90% of your needs and compare those actual models against one another to see which will best suit you and your shooting style. Now, for most people, I recommend an APS-C or crop sensor camera, simply for the cost saving. I found it's better to save money on the body and put that savings into quality lenses, which have a much bigger impact on your photos, especially when you're just starting out. If you want to know which specific camera I recommend for beginner photographers, check out this video. I'll give you a hint. While it is an APS-C camera, it's not this one. Sorry, Matt. As usual, I will link everything used in this video in the description below, but most importantly, get out there, shoot with what you already have, and have some fun. All right, time to go shoot some more photos.